How do organisms reproduce? Mode of reproduction. Reproduction can be defined as the ability of an organism to produce a new generation which is identical to its species. All living organisms reproduce either by sexual reproduction or by asexual reproduction. For sexual reproduction, both male and female partner are essential. Unicellular organisms like bacteria can reproduce from a single parent. This type of reproduction is called as asexual reproduction. Let us discuss about few modes of asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction. Fission. Fission leads to the creation of new individuals in unicellular organisms. Many bacteria and protozoa simply split into two equal halves during cell division. It can be in any plane. However, in leishmania, binary fission occurs at whip-like structure at one end of the cell. Single-celled organisms such as malarial parasite, Plasmodium, divide into many daughter cells by multiple fission. Asexual reproduction. Fragmentation. To understand the method of the fragmentation, let us have a simple experiment. Collect some water from a lake or pond that appears dark green and contains filamentous structures. Put one or two filaments on a slide. Put a drop of glycerine on these filaments and cover it with a cover slip with the help of a dissecting needle. Observing the slide under a microscope, you can easily see the spirogyra. The mature divides horizontally into two parts in favorable condition. Now each fragment develops into a mature, fully grown individual. This mode of formation of a new organism is called as fragmentation. Asexual reproduction. Regeneration. Animals like Hydra and Planaria shows regeneration. Hydra and Planaria can be cut into any number of pieces and each piece grows into a complete organism. These organisms have the ability to give rise to new individual organisms from their body parts. Regeneration is not same as reproduction, since most organisms would not normally depend on being cut up to be able to reproduce. Asexual reproduction. Budding is the most common method of asexual reproduction in yeasts. Let us discuss the steps involved in the budding of yeast. In budding, a soft zone appears at the cell wall of the parent cell. Then, a small bud will bulge out of that zone. At this stage, mitotic division takes place in the parent cell nucleus and one daughter nuclei will be pushed into the bud. Now, constriction will be formed between the bud and the parent cell. Finally, a bud will break off and forms a daughter cell. Vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is used to grow many plants like sugarcane, roses and grapes for agriculture purposes. Layering or grafting is a type of vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation methods also make possible for the propagation of plants such as banana, orange and jasmine that have lost the capacity to produce seeds. The banana plant reproduces by layering. The banana sucker is removed from the mother banana plant and also the roots are cut. These are then planted, which give rise to a new banana plant that is genetically identical to the mother banana plant. Plants produced by vegetative propagation are similar to its parent plant. Similarly, buds produced at the leaf margin of bryophyllum can develop into new plants. Asexual reproduction. Spore formation. Wet a slice of bread and keep it in a cool, moist and dark place at least for 2 days. By observing its surface with a magnifying glass, hyphae can be seen on the bread, which is nothing but the fungus called rhizopus. The thread-like structures that developed on the bread are having spores. The tiny blobs are sporangia, which contains the cells or spores. These spores are light in weight, thus they can be easily carried away. The spores are covered by thick walls that protects them until they come into contact with another moist surface and can begin to grow. Introduction to sexual reproduction. All the living beings on this earth produce their offspring to maintain the continuity of their species. This process is known as reproduction. Besides asexual and vegetative reproduction, plants also show sexual reproduction. This type of reproduction gives the genetic variation in their offspring. Let us discuss about the sexual reproduction in plants and animals. Fertilization. Let us discuss the transfer of male and female gametes in plants. If this transfer of pollen occurs in the same flower, it is referred to as self-pollination. On the other hand, if the pollen is transferred from one flower to another of the same plant or to the another flower of the same kind, it is known as cross-pollination. This transfer of pollen from one flower to another is achieved by agents like wind, water, or animals. After the pollen lands on a suitable stigma, it has to reach the female germ cells, which are present in the ovary with the help of a pollen tube. The male and female nucleus fuse and form the zygote. After fertilization, the ovule develops a tough coat and is gradually converted into a seed, and the ovary grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit. Other parts like petals, sepals, stamens, style and stigma may shrivel and fall off. The seed contains the future plant or embryo, which develops into a seedling under appropriate conditions. This process is known as germination. Sexual reproduction in plants. The reproductive parts of angiosperms are located in the flower. Stamens and carpels are the reproductive parts of the flower. If the flower contains only stamens or carpels, it is called as unisexual flower. For example, watermelon and papaya. When a flower contains both stamens and carpels, it is called as bisexual. For example, hibiscus mustard. A stamen has two parts, anther and filament. Carpel is present in the center of a flower and is the female reproductive part. The swollen bottom part is the ovary. Middle elongated part is the style, and the terminal part, which may be sticky, is called the stigma. The ovary contains ovules and each ovule has an egg cell. Reproduction in human beings. Human beings have sexual mode of reproduction. Sexual reproduction in human beings is possible after the maturation period. Human beings also develop secondary sexual characters for this purpose. The maturation of reproductive organs during adolescence is called puberty. The reproductive system of male is different from the female. Let us discuss male and female reproductive systems. Male reproductive system. The male reproductive system consists of portions which produce the germ cells. Other portions deliver the germ cells to the site of fertilization. The formation of germ cells or sperms takes place in the testes. These are located outside the abdominal cavity in a scrotum. Testes secrete testosterone, which regulates the formation of sperms, brings changes in the appearance in the boys at the time of puberty. The sperms formed are delivered through the vas deferens, which unites with the tube coming from the urinary bladder. The urethra forms a common passage for both the sperms and urine. Along the path of the vas deferens, glands like prostate and seminal vesicles add their secretions, which serves as a medium of transport of the sperm. The sperms are tiny bodies that consist of mainly genetic material. It is divided into head, midpiece and the tail. Its long tail helps the sperm to move towards the female germ cell. Female reproductive system. In females, ovaries are present just below the kidneys in the abdominal cavity. Each ovary has several sacs-like structures called as ovarian follicles. Each follicle has an ovum in its center place. When the ovum is mature, the follicle ruptures and releases the ovum. After rupture, the follicle is called as corpus luteum. The egg or ovum is carried from the ovary to the womb through a thin oviduct or fallopian tube. The two oviducts unite into an elastic bag-like structure known as the uterus. The uterus opens into the vagina through the cervix. The sperms enter through the vagina and travel upwards and reach the oviduct where they may encounter the egg. The fertilized egg and zygote get implanted in the lining of the uterus and starts dividing to form the embryo. The embryo gets nutrition from the mother's blood with the help of a special tissue called placenta. The developing embryo also generates waste substances which can be removed by transferring them into the mother's blood through the placenta. The development of child inside the mother's body takes approximately 9 months.